welcome to the next edition of the South Carolina Realtors webinar series, now sponsored by the Realtor Education. With us today, we have SCR's Senior VP of Government Affairs, Cashion Drolet. Cashion will be giving us a preview of the upcoming 2011 legislative agenda and talk to us about license law rewrite and a few other issues. Thanks for joining us, Cashion. Now we'll hand it over to you.
Kathy, I'm glad to be here and glad to give our membership a little insight into what the South Carolina Realtors leadership have in store for the 2011-12 legislative session. Our 2011 quality of life agenda is broad this year, and we have a lot of work that we'll be doing, and we certainly can't do it without the support of the membership. Your participation is what makes us effective at the State House. So those grassroots calls that you make to your legislators, responding to calls to action, all that makes the difference in pushing our agenda to the finish line. The 2011-12 legislative session has actually already started. The House held an organizational session November 17th and 18th, and during the organizational session, Speaker Bobby Harrell, Speaker Harrell from Charleston, was re-elected to serve as Speaker. Speaker Pro Tem, Representative Jay Lucas, was elected to serve in that position. They elected a clerk, a chaplain, and they also adopted rules. The rules that the House adopted is no significant change over the previous year's rules, and the rules are simply the way that they conduct business on the House floor, so similar to Robert's rules or Jefferson's rules, if y'all are familiar with those. The Senate yesterday started pre-filing legislation. Pre-files are days set aside before the gavel is dropped for the first day of session, where legislators can pre-file a bill and have it sort of referred to committee and already in the queue ready to move as soon as January comes around and the session starts. The Senate started yesterday, December 1st, with a pre-file. They pre-filed 210 bills, and they have additional dates set December 8th and 15th. I have read about half of the bills that the Senate pre-filed yesterday, but I still have a good number to go. The House will pre-file December 7th and 14th, so I can assure you that the next 2 weeks for me will be with my laptop reading everything that was introduced, so a lot of fun times in store. The session starts when they actually start conducting their legislative business. That starts January 11th at noon, and then the following day, January 12th, will be the inauguration of Governor-elect Nikki Haley, and we'll also have the swearing in of the new statewide officers. There's a slate of new officers that were elected in November that will also be sworn in that day. So moving on to our quality of life agenda, we'll be working this year on property tax reform, real estate license law reform, LLR reform, private transfer fees, and real estate contracts. And I'll talk about each of these issues in a little more depth in the following couple of slides. The first issue is the issue of property tax reform, something that I know is near and dear to the hearts of homeowners, business owners, and realtors in this state. It's been a priority issue for the South Carolina Realtors Association and your leadership for the past couple of years. We've been working on point of sale assessment reform, and as you know, the House has delivered on that several times, and the Senate has failed to do so several times. That remains a priority for the association, and going into the 2011-12 session, we really feel that our work is in the Senate, and that's where we'll be starting with trying to bring some point of sale assessment reform to business owners and homeowners in our state. Y'all have probably been reading in the paper about the Tax Realignment Commission and their report, and the Tax Realignment Commission was a group tasked in 2009 with making a comprehensive review of the entire tax code, so all those pieces that make up the state's revenue coffers. When the General Assembly passed the resolution that created the TRAC Commission, they actually took property taxes off the table and said, you can look at everything, but you can't look at property taxes. We were very disappointed. The leadership of the association was very disappointed to see that property tax was not on the table. And in the TRAC's final report, which was due in November. They actually have not discussed property taxes at all. Their recommendations are largely sales tax related, and unfortunately they did not make any recommendations regarding property tax reform, the inequities between 4% and 6% property, assessable transfers of interest, or what we call point of sale. None of that is included in their report. They sent a letter November 17th to Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Dan Cooper, and Chairman Leatherman of the Senate Finance Committee, stating that they had finished their report and directing them to the TRAC website where the information can be found, and their actual finalized report has not been made public yet. I think they're still editing it, and hopefully we'll have that within the next 2 weeks. But the draft report is available online. They'll also have an opportunity, the individual commission members will have an opportunity to comment on the TRAC's work and sort of provide any dissenting opinions. And so we're hoping that someone will express disappointment over the TRAC not looking at property taxes. We testified, the association leadership testified before the TRAC Commission several occasions, begging for point of sale, accessible transfer of interest relief, and so there's a great level of disappointment. But we haven't lost hope, and we have not relented, and we will be very aggressive in the coming session to have point of sale addressed. Next up is our real estate license law revisions. This is something that the leadership of your association has been working on for several years. It's included in the association's strategic plan under the banner of really improving professionalism within the industry. And so the focus of the license law rewrite is focusing on professionalism, and it makes a mission of the Real Estate Commission, the licensing board for the real estate industry, makes it part of their mission to provide a professional education to licensees, which that's something that has been absent in the Real Estate Practice Act. The license law revision is essentially about quantity of educational hours, but also fixates on quality. We can't force folks to get more education unless it's meaningful and valuable to their business and their ability to earn a living. So we are proposing doubling the educational hours required to receive the license to 120 hours, and then also having some documented field experience, attending a listing presentation, a closing, all those sorts of things that are important to your business that you would need to document in order to get the license. Proposing a 36-hour broker in charge course and an exam, and then requiring 8 hours of continuing education annually. So right now it's 8 hours per 2 years, and we would propose essentially doubling that to 8 hours a year. And that's on the quantity side. On the quality side, we're proposing that the commission allow for distance learning. Given the technology that we have today, we think that you shouldn't really have to sit in a classroom to be able to get education. There's so many online opportunities for that. We would also propose allowing designations and certifications from nationally recognized real estate organizations, the Bar Association, the Forestry Association, those types of organizations, to allow those to count for CE, to make CE something that realtors get a value from, that they can translate into success in their business. We are also looking at requiring additional ethics, business ethics for licensees. We're also asking the Real Estate Commission to provide an increased level of service to licensees and the public, and essentially we get at that by tying the Real Estate Commission's license fees, that $60 fee that you pay, to the commission. Right now it goes to the LLR, which is the larger licensing board for the Real Estate Commission, and it doesn't all come back to the Real Estate Commission for them to be able to provide those benefits and services that licensees expect and quite frankly deserve for their money. So we are tying those fees to the commission. We are requiring a 90-day notification for license renewal, one dedicated investigator per 5,000 licensees, We're also reinstating the Real Estate Education and Research Fund, which in previous years has not been funded. There's a $10 portion of your license fee that can be used to fund that, and we would actually require that it be used. And that would provide a new benefit to licensees that we could, economic updates, market studies, all those sorts of things that are valuable to your business that aren't necessarily being done now. And so that'll be a priority for us in the 2011-12 session, and your leadership's been working with leaders in the House and Senate to make this a reality. The next issue that we'll be working on is an issue of private transfer fees. Private transfer fees are a new development in real property law where a private party rather than a governmental entity would impose a transfer tax on the sale. It's similar to the real estate transfer tax, except that it's not a governmental entity that collects the funds, it's a private party. So it would be a percentage of the sales price far into the future. So for up to 99 years, every time the property transfers, a percentage of that sales price would be kicked back to that original developer. Private transfer fees are being used as a private investment vehicle. They're being bundled and securitized and sold on Wall Street. The South Carolina Realtors leadership do find them objectionable, as do the leaders of the National Association of Realtors, because of the increase of housing costs, a barrier to home ownership. They represent a barrier to buyers in obtaining financing. They're a barrier to the free transfer of property, and they pose difficulties to obtaining clear title. And for those reasons, SCR is proposing a comprehensive ban on private transfer fees in the 2011-12 legislative session. Real estate contracts. As y'all know, real estate contracts are the cornerstone of any transaction and a key part of what you do as realtors. In the last couple of years, we've seen an assault on your ability to act as a scrivener, fill in the blanks in a contract. In two sessions ago, we were able to strike a compromise on a bill that was proposed that would have endangered your ability to fill in a contract without facing an allegation of the unauthorized practice of law, which is a felony offense. But we were able to work out a compromise that we felt would protect realtors and real estate licensees, and that you as a real estate practitioner could not be accused of the unauthorized practice of law unless an act had specifically been found to be the practice of law. So acting as a scrivener, filling in a real estate contract has not been found to be the practice of law. Therefore, you couldn't be criminalized for it. But in the last year, we've seen a couple of court cases, Supreme Court decisions rendered that we feel are potentially could compromise your ability to fill in a contract, do your job without facing a criminal allegation. And so it's something that your leadership has made a priority. We are not at this time going to propose any legislation until we have all the facts. We're consulting with a couple of outside attorneys, have been in close contact with leadership in the House and Senate to make sure that your ability to do your job is not endangered. So it's something that we'll continue to monitor, continue to do the research, and in the event that we need to make a change, we'll be prepared to go to the General Assembly and ask for those changes. And we have, since your leadership's been communicating so well with House and Senate leadership, it won't come as a surprise to them if we need something done quickly. And that's kind of concludes our proactive agenda for the 2011-12 session. But a huge component of what we do at the State House is a defensive agenda. As I was mentioning before, defending your right to fill in a contract. A lot of my time as your lobbyist at the State House is spent, quite frankly, killing bills that would inhibit quality of life in South Carolina, your ability to earn a living, your ability to do your job. Of course, we cannot predict what our defensive agenda is going to be, and I always have a few hunches as to what could happen, so hence the question marks about what the defensive agenda is for 2011. But as y'all well know, South Carolina is enduring a budget crisis right now. They'll start, the General Assembly will start the year when the budget writing year already in the hole, facing a huge deficit already, and they're going to be looking for ways to cut those, to fill those holes. And in addition to cutting government programs, and eliminating certain governmental agencies, there will be efforts to increase taxes and fees on the real estate transaction to fill those holes, and we will defend against those. We saw it last year when the House was considering the budget. We killed 2 amendments that would have been an increase in fees on the transaction, and certainly stand prepared to do that again. We're also seeing the Department of Revenue getting very creative in implementing service taxes, which could potentially affect our industry. A service tax on the real estate transaction, and local governments, of course, are still seeking additional ways to use impact fees to fill holes in their budgets locally. So those are all things that we're prepared, your leadership is prepared to defend against in the 2011-12 session. In addition to the realtor agenda and the defensive agenda, there are other issues at the State House that will be percolating, and a couple of those that have been mentioned by leadership in the House and Senate and committee leadership have been implementing state spending caps. This is something that's been on the table for the past couple of years that people have been talking about around the State House, but nothing's been done. I think you'll see that this year. Efforts to increase transparency in government, that was a big issue in the election, and I think you'll see some actions by the House and Senate to start posting more stuff online so that citizens can access it, more recorded votes, roll call votes on the floor of the House and Senate. Immigration is another issue that we expect to come up this year. It was an election issue, and I think we'll see something on that this year. The track report is out there and is certainly an issue that will come up. I really don't think it'll come up in the 2011-12 session, but it's out there, so that's something we'll be mindful of. Gambling and raffles. This is something that Senator McConnell has set out as a priority, which would be charity raffles, churches that want to raffle off quilts. Right now that's actually unlawful, and well as gambling at home poker games and those sorts of things. Those are unlawful right now, and I think that'll be something that you'll see the Senate in particular debate. Economic development and job creation will continue to be at the top of the list, I think, for legislators, seeing that South is still among the highest unemployment rates in the nation. And then also executive branch priorities. As I mentioned earlier, we have a whole new Governor-elect Haley and a whole new slate of constitutional officers that all have sort of electoral mandates of campaign promises and issues that they discussed and stump speeches that they will be going to the General Assembly and asking for the General Assembly to pass. So those are all issues that will be on the floor of the House and Senate that will be competing for time on the floor for debate of our issues. So those are issues that we'll be navigating and having to reconcile our agenda with. And there are also some other actors at the State House that aren't necessarily issues that will be on the floor, but they certainly affect dispensation of any other issue on the floor. The next slide is other actors, and I call them actors because they're not necessarily bills, and they're not necessarily things that come up for debate, but they're kind of behind the scenes, and they play a factor in pretty much any debate on the floor. And namely, it's going to be the census report, which comes out in late March. The census report will be used to redraw House and Senate district lines for State House, and then also the 6 congressional districts. Reapportionment is not only a regional battle, but it's a partisan battle, particularly since South Carolina is thought to get a 7th congressional district in next year, and those lines will have to be drawn, and of course there will be battles over where lines go, who gets certain precincts, whether 2 members will be pinned into the same district and have to run in primaries against each other. All sorts of interesting things that will happen with that will play a behind the scenes role in dispensation of issues on the floor of the House and Senate. The 2011-12 budget will also play a factor because there's no money. South Carolina is in a budget crisis, and so if you've got legislation that affects a government agency, increases a cost to government, increases a cost to local government, all those things that have a price tag associated with them will be increasingly difficult to pass because there's just frankly no money. And then lastly, the 2012 election will be a factor. And I know that we just wrapped up an election, but I can guarantee you that House members and senators will be already thinking about that 2012 election. The entire House and Senate will be up in 2012, and it'll play a role in issues that come to the floor, the way they decide to vote on issues. So you'll see them paying close attention to what's popular with the electorate, and those are the kinds of things that you'll see debated on the floor of the House and Senate. Our 2011 Realtor Rally is coming up. I hope that y'all will all make plans to attend. The quality of life agenda for the South Carolina Realtors is not possible without your participation, without your grassroots involvement. So it's very important that you make plans to attend the rally on January 25th. It starts at 11. We'll start at the State House on the steps outside. We'll do a kind of an organizational meeting, and we'll get ready to go inside the State House. We'll go up to the second floor lobby, and you guys will be able to do all that great grassroots lobbying that you have done in the past to move our agenda to the forefront and move our agenda items to the finish line. Then we'll also host a barbecue luncheon for legislators and their staff on the State House grounds in between the Senate and House office buildings, and we'll have a tent. It'll be heated since we'll be in January, and I hope that you all will attend, make plans to attend. There's no cost associated with attending that, so I hope to see everybody there. We'll wrap up about 3 o'clock, and I hope it'll be a great day. And with that, I'm going to conclude my report. I know it was brief and quick, but I have all my contact information listed up there. Please feel free to email, text, call, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or find an answer if I don't have one. And actually, I think you can type in a question right now. Are there any questions? I'm happy to answer now, or you could follow up with me later. Seeing any questions? I appreciate everyone attending today, and thank you for your support of your. Oh, we have a question.
The local associations receive talking.
Yes, the local associations will receive talking points as we get closer to January 25th. I'm assuming you're talking about for the rally. As we get closer to January 25th and we have a clearer idea of the lay of the land and timing and schedule for the House and Senate, we'll have talking points ready in advance of the 25th. So you'll have more information than you'll probably want or need. So that's forthcoming. Are there any additional questions that I can answer? Lisa, we're in the license law. The question is regarding the license law rewrite. What are we proposing for investigators? We are proposing that the commission have one dedicated investigator per 5,000 licensees.
Will the PowerPoint be accessible to?
Question is, will the PowerPoint be accessible after the webinar? And it will be posted online by Monday, so you'll have access to that, and I think there'll be a recorded version of me talking if you'd like to re-access that on the website as well.
And then
Lisa is asking again about investigators. Will they be full-time? Yes. What we've experienced in the last couple of years with LLR and to the detriment of the Real Estate Commission is that we've seen a kind of a centralizing of jobs and functions at the LLR. So the LLR has created a centralized licensing pool that issues license, answers questions, a centralized pool of attorneys, and a centralized pool of investigators, so that an investigator may one day be investigating a real estate licensee, and the next day investigating a nurse, and the next day investigating a pharmacist, and that's not good for our business. And so yes, the inspectors will be full-time, dedicated solely to real estate. They would not do any other function at the LLR. They'd work for the commission. Any other questions? Well, it looks like there aren't any further questions, but again, if you think of something after the webinar that you need an answer, please contact me, send me an email, text me, give me a call. My mobile phone is the best way to reach me because I do spend the majority of my time at the State House, so I'm usually on the go. But anyway, thank you again for participating, and I look forward to having a successful 2011-12 session, and I appreciate your participation.